Hello and welcome everyone, Andy Bryan here from The Soul Pathway, and today within this video I wanted to speak with you about exploring the shadow and shifting the collective consciousness, as currently at this time we are experiencing a mass awakening, and there are a lot of things that we're awakening to individually as well as collectively. And so I felt incredibly called to create this video for you today in order to, in some ways, enlighten you to the world around you and also the world within you. So there is a lot of information, first of all, that's being spread around the world, whether it's through our news and our mainstream media or whether it's through social media. We only need to look on one of these forms of information to be completely bombarded with so many different articles and information. Who are we to believe? What are we to understand? And for me, this is where the shadow comes into play. And I believe each and every one of us has to look at our shadow. And we also need to look at the collective shadow. Because if we aren't, in many ways we are denying ourselves of this beautiful and incredible enlightenment that we can find ourselves in. I believe the path to light is through the shadow, and that is not only within ourselves but it's also collectively, and this comes to shifting the collective consciousness and really creating a new path for ourselves, defining that new path, really awakening to that love and bliss of this world. Rebirthing that new world really starts with being honest with ourselves. So I spoke about this many times in previous videos. We've got the ego, the self, and the shadow. The ego is all our conditioning from society, culture, religion, values and beliefs passed on to us by our parents. We also have the collective conditioning with regards to our ego, whereby we've been conditioned to believe certain things from the media, the news, our governments, many different organisations, pharmaceutical industry, and so many different things have conditioned us to believe certain things about ourselves and the world around us. So we've got this collective conditioning and this ego that is playing out before our eyes. We are being made to think this, that or the other, and we're being placed in a place of fear. That fear comes from the extremities of the world around us, through the media and through our governments. Do I believe that we should be forced to live in these conditions where we're isolated in such an extreme way? I believe isolation in many ways is good for us, but in many ways it's not good for our mental health and our well-being. I believe we can live in a world where we are distancing in some way or form, but not so much in a place of restriction, because this is restricting ourselves and our movements and not allowing us to be free as people, as individuals. And that's why I believe we really need to look collectively at what is going on within the world around us at the moment. From my perspective, I believe this lockdown, the world around us, is a form of control, as fear is a form of control. And fear will control us in many different ways. But we have to allow ourselves freedom of thought as well as freedom of movement, whilst doing it in a safe and enlightened way where we're not harming or placing pressure on other people. But we've got this collective consciousness, we've got this collective ego that's happening at the moment with all these different news and media sources, governmental information or ideas that is being passed on to us left, right and centre, that's placing us into positions of fear. And I think it's really essential for us to rise above that, But how do we rise above that fear? For me, it starts with honesty. Honesty with what is going on in the world. And I'll be honest with you right now. I'm very much a conspiracy theorist, though nowadays I like to regard myself as a conspiracy realist. Because I've come to realise that these theories that have been going on for years and years and years, they're not really theories anymore. They're very much becoming realities. And realities is where the shadow lies. Because the shadow is a direct reflection of the ego. So we look within ourselves and we look at our own conditioning and our own ego and how the shadow is formed. The shadow is formed from suppressed emotions and experiences. And with it being a direct reflection, it's often something that we can't see within ourselves, or we're afraid to look at, we're afraid to see for what it might bring us. But yet, and I'll go back to one of Joseph Campbell's quotes, the cave we fear to enter holds the treasure we seek. And I shared that in a previous video, which is all about looking at your shadow, exploring your shadow, coming to love, accept and appreciate your shadow, so that we can heal from it, so that we can love ourselves, and so we can truly step into a place of enlightenment, which is beautiful, really. And for me, the beautiful thing is, and I've gone through much of this myself, and this is one of the reasons why I'm sharing with you, I've worked heavily on my shadow over the years, and it's brought me a beautiful sense of peace, tranquility and love. Spiritual community is often speaking about love and light, and for me that's ignorance, because love and light without the shadow is just, for me, it's not spiritual awakening or awareness at all. It's living in a place of denial to ourselves and our true divinity of the love that we can find within ourselves if we allow ourselves to connect with our inner shadow. That pain and that darkness within ourselves will guide us towards the light and now allow us to shift our consciousness and awareness to a much higher place where we can live in peace and harmony with others. But it's essential that we find this within ourselves first. So I move back to the collective ego, the collective consciousness. And the collective consciousness at the moment, as I mentioned throughout this video already, there's so much going on around us. But from my perspective, we have to look at the shadow. We have to look at these potential conspiracy theories. For we've got the time in order to do that at the moment. We've got the time in order to explore what is going on in the world, or what has been happening for years and years. For the shadow will bring us light, and the shadow will allow us to shift our consciousness and awareness. But the more we suppress and repress it as a global peoples, the more we will, stay in a place where we are not enlightened. We're not moving on this new path. We are not raising our frequency and our awareness. So that begins with each and every one of us. So for me, this is a video and a calling for you. A calling for you to take this time to seek your truth, whatever that might be for you. It could be anything. I'm not telling you to believe everything that you're being shared or taught, or any information that's being passed on to you. But what I ask for you to do is have an open mind and a curiosity about what is being shared. Because if you have that open mind and that curiosity, then we can look at the shadow together. What's coming up? What awareness is it bringing us in these moments? And how can we shift that consciousness from a place of darkness, pain and suffering for these years, and control and manipulation, to a place of light, true higher consciousness, and a place of bliss? Because I believe each and every one of us can do that. But we have to work together in order to create that change, create that shift in the world. in order to step into a new light where we can truly live from a place of love and light. But we also must come to realize that there always is and will be shadow. But we can come to love, accept and appreciate that. Because as we shift the collective consciousness, we begin to rebirth a new world. Now, I don't know what this world is going to look like right now. I'm a personal believer that the economies are shifting and changing as we speak. The financial systems at which we're living by at this current stage in our evolution, I believe they're going to be falling in some way or form. I don't know exactly how, but that is going to change. The way that we live our everyday lives in terms of the economy as a whole, in terms of working, this 9-to-5 life where we're not fulfilled, we're not enlightened, we're not living from our true selves. I believe that will shift and change as well. We're already seeing more and more people work from home, and that space of working from home, yes, we can see it in a place of confines and restriction, but we can also see it as a place of maybe this is a shift where we can realize that we can work in a different way and not need to have all these material possessions in our lives, not strive for money here, there and everywhere in order to be happy, content and fulfilled within our lives, but live from a place where we can truly love, honour and appreciate ourselves and our souls as individuals. Because I think that's beautiful. I think that's incredible, and I think each and every one of us can find that as well. But we have to, in many ways, find a way to rebirth this new world. There are many things that I can invite you to look into. But what I ask you to do, as I said just a moment ago, first of all, I invite you to take everything with a pinch of salt in many ways. But if someone shares something on social media that can be a trigger for you, that could be the collective shadow popping up, or that can be the shadow within yourself. Because a trigger is often comes from a place of pain, or more often than not, it comes from a place of pain. That's why it's the suppressed and repressed memories. So whether it's something within yourself that you have to look at in order to heal and grow, or maybe it's the collective consciousness that you are invited to look at in order to shift the collective consciousness. Because I believe that's what we need to do in order to rebirth this new world. I invite you to really look at everything that pops up on social media, maybe from those quote-unquote conspiracy theorists, and approach with an open heart and an open mind. Allow yourself to explore, to find out what you might discover. I'm not asking you to believe everything that's shown to you, but what I do ask for you is to find your own truths within it, because that is the enlightenment for you, yourself, and also each and every one of us, because we all hold different truths, right? But I also invite you to look at some different ideas of birthing this new world, because I come across this man many years ago who ran a movement called Ubuntu, and Ubuntu's absolutely amazing. The Ubuntu Project is all about this new way of living and being, which is a place of giving and receiving, where money is not passed between people, but value is passed. Value is given and it's shared, and it's a place of that giving and receiving relationship that we have with each and every one of us. But this would obviously be on a larger and grander scale. Now, Michael Tellinger is the man that wrote the Ubuntu Project. A South African man with a wealth of knowledge, definitely worth looking into. But there are just some things for me to ask you to do in order to rise above what is being shown to you right now, because I believe we are at a place where we have a calling. We are being called, each and every one of us, to shift within ourselves and also shift the collective consciousness to rebirth this new world. So I ask you to explore the shadow and shift the collective consciousness. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below this video. You'll also find information about some of the links or some of the things I've spoken about within the description. So I invite you again to look at that. And I will say thank you again for listening. And I do look forward to speaking with you and sharing another video with you very soon. And with that, I will say bye for now, take care, and let's shift the consciousness and awareness to rebirth a new world. Speak to you again soon.